It's very probable that you've heard the Buffalo Springfield song. Now, you probably don't recognize the name, but I know you've heard the song. The song title's For What It's Worth. But the lyrics are this: there's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds, getting so much resistance from behind. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody, look what's going down. So now you recognize the song, right? Well, I want to talk about listening today. And as recently as a half hour ago, I read something that was exactly what I'm talking about. So I know we're relevant and on topic today. Good morning. Jeff Elliott, pastor of New Horizons Fellowship, New Haven, Indiana. I appreciate all of you who tune in regular, live. I realize most of you watch later. That's okay. That's completely fine. But as always, let me know that you're out there. And I know that the real reason that you watch is because you love the jokes that I have to tell. And I actually think we're doing reruns today. Some of these are recycled. At least I've heard them before, but maybe you have as well. But anyway, let me know if you have more jokes. Clearly, I'd love to see them and hear them. Give our page a like so you can see when these videos are posted. Usually Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8. And then a comment as well just to let us know you're out there watching. So we're going to talk about listening today. Never let anyone tell you what you can or cannot do. Just look at Beethoven. Everyone told him he'd never be a musician just because he was deaf. But did he listen? See, that's kind of the opposite point of what I'm going to make today. Anyway, after about 6 months of listening to people talk with masks on, I finally understand what Charlie Brown's teacher was saying. Have you ever had that realization that because of masks we can hardly hear each other anymore? Did you realize how much communication was based on facial expressions and seeing people's mouths moving? How important that was. Anyway, you can now understand what Charlie Brown's teacher was saying, and hopefully you guys know who Charlie Brown's teacher is. That joke should just be about universal. Anyway, 2 years ago, the doctor told me I was going deaf, and I haven't heard from him since. I'm pretty sure that one's recycled. But then also this one I think may be recycled. I think I've used it for. My wife just nudged me once and said, "You weren't even listening, were you?" And I thought that's a strange way to start a conversation. Which she probably doesn't think that's funny at all, but nevertheless. So anyway, back to our topic today: the Buffalo Springfield song. If nobody's right, everybody's wrong. How did it go? Young people speaking their minds. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look. And I guess his idea is that we should stop listening to each other. And I know that I often quote James 1:19, that we'd be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. I think it would solve so many problems in our culture today if we could just do those three things. Apparently we don't. I still think those are three very important traits. Would radically change our interactions with each other. I do not do it perfectly myself, or even well at times. And some of the problems in our world are because people think they know everything, and they refuse to listen to other viewpoints. It has put a logjam in our politics, talking about people who don't listen to each other, including those who boldly speak about other politics, not just politicians. It's affected our discussions on race and religion. It affects our relationships with our neighbors. Unfortunately, tragically, I should say, we've used social media as an example of our communication. You just say whatever you want, launch it out there, no consequences, don't have to look anybody in the eye. It really has not helped us to communicate and dialogue with each other. I want to encourage you, this is kind of a side note today, do not let social media set what par is for our communication with each other. Social media allows us to just enter these bubbles that promote the thinking and philosophy so that we can hear things and people that we agree with and shut everything else out and not listen to it, and that is a mistake. In fact, here's the quote I was reading in the New York Times just a half hour ago. And the article doesn't really matter, but I thought this is exactly what I'm talking about today. It's talking about a college environment. It says students regularly attack their professors and one another for their scholarship, professional choices, and perceived political views. In a place awash in rumor and anonymous accusations, almost no one would speak on the record. Isn't that what social media is about? You can say and attack and do whatever you want, and you don't have to be on the record. That's why we have fake accounts everywhere, burner accounts, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to tie that into the book of Proverbs because you know that's where we are going to be for a while. Proverbs 12:15 says this: "Fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to others." I'm going to read that again. Fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to others. Have you ever heard that there are two sides to every story? The older I get, the more true I realize that is. And as I was thinking about this morning, my wife and I have been married for over 25 years now, and we still have different perceptions of the same event. And sometimes it's more than a perception. It's we see our side of a thing. But anyway, so even when you have a conflict or disagreement with someone, look for their side of the story. Even with some people, in instances when I have had disagreements or conflict with somebody, I try to find a way to, well, what's their perspective? Why are they saying this? Why are they acting? Why do they believe this sort of thing? It's not always that they are wrong and you are right. It can be a matter of perspective or experience. So let me go back to the book of Proverbs. We started there with chapter 12, verse 15. Fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to others. I want to give you some more. As we've been looking at Proverbs, trying to implement some basic life principles today. We're talking about communication, dialogue, some tools for getting along with each other. Proverbs tells us to listen to other people, even those who have correction or criticism for us. Chapter 15 of Proverbs, 2 verses 31 and 32 say this: "The ear that listens to life-giving reproof will dwell among the wise. Whoever ignores instruction despises himself, but he who listens to reproof gains intelligence." All right? So Proverbs says, don't just think that you're the only one that has an opinion and think your own way is right. You're wise to listen to others, even here in chapter 15, when it's correction or it's something that you don't want to hear. You're wise to listen to it. I remember reading many years ago an article about people sharing their Christian faith. And that one of the things that was causing a problem was there was no winsomeness. Now, the article was defining the word winsome as being able to say, you know, here's my opinion, but I might be wrong, and I'm willing to listen to you. That's really not what winsome means, and I'll talk about that more in a second. But it really just seems that in our world today, there's just trust, hostility, and trolling. Even in the most mundane places. I'm in some Facebook groups, and that almost always, when it starts to turn slightly political or slightly religious, it's just going to go off the rails after that. So back to this idea of winsomeness. This article that had talked about the idea of winsomeness being the ability to say, I might be wrong. The definition technically is pleasing or generally attractive. And I do have to say that in most of our dialogues with each other, they're not always that pleasing, especially on social media. Instead of dialogues, they're more like diatribes. And if you don't know what that means, look that up. That'll be your word for the day, a vocabulary word. But Kim, let me give you one more verse with Proverbs before we wrap this up. We're running out of time today. Chapter 19, verse 20 of Proverbs says, "Get all the advice and instruction you can, so you will be wise the rest of your life." So at least in 3 places in Proverbs, we are cautioned about not listening to anybody else and just thinking that we have the correct idea, even when it includes criticism. Chapter 19 would say, get all the advice and instruction you can so you'll be wise the rest of your life. One of the commentators, as I've been studying Proverbs, says there's a lot of information in our world, but not a lot of wisdom. And I totally agree with that. We need to really listen to each other, especially when it's difficult, and when it's people that we think are trustworthy and wise, but also to people that we don't particularly like and opinions that we don't particularly want to hear. It's not going to hurt for us to listen to those things. So I would challenge you with that today. Today, listen to a voice or a podcast or an opinion that you normally wouldn't. Maybe you need to change and watch a different news channel today. Maybe you need to listen to a different political opinion. if you make a point to listen to a political opinion every day. You might, if you do this, you might just learn something about yourself, something about the world around us. And this is a truth that I want to stick with you for a long time. Almost everyone, because of our different experiences, opinions, attitudes, beliefs, has something of value to contribute to the way you have developed your own beliefs, thoughts, politics, so forth, including religious beliefs, obviously. But almost everybody has something of value to contribute to others. And along with that, listening to someone who you may not normally listen to, maybe I should say, hey, give Word for the World a listen. But the reality is, if you made it this far, you already have. And I say thank you for that. And because of that, I'll pray a blessing for you today, that you'll hear a voice you wouldn't have normally heard, and that will make you wise for the future. So pray with me. Father, I thank you for those who are watching today, who will be challenged by this. Help us to understand that you are the voice above all others that we need to hear. The wisdom that your word and your spirit provide for us. We thank you for the wisdom that comes with that. But I pray also that you would allow us to be at least able to genuinely communicate and hear those around us, voices that we wouldn't normally hear. And even though the thoughts may be challenging, the beliefs may be challenging, it'll make us even stronger in what we believe in some cases. But in other cases, maybe we need to have our minds and attitudes changed about things. Pray that you bring people and voices into our lives today to speak truth to us. And we thank you for that. Help us to practice genuine winsomeness with those around us today, as a way to bring honor and glory to you. And I ask this in Christ's name. Amen. Thanks for being here. Today is Tuesday, June 8th already. So we'll plan to be back and see you on Thursday. In the meantime, have a great day.